Morning, everyone. Hello, thank you, and thank you for joining us this morning. Welcome. I'm looking forward to the next couple of hours. This is a topic that I've been interested in for a very long time, and ironically, it was hard to find the words to share what I have learned about the words that we use with young children. So you can't hear me, Stacy. Oh dear. Anyone else? Everyone else okay with Kirsten can hear? Okay. Stacy, you might need to give permissions. I wonder. Sometimes maybe speakers are muted, or sometimes you have to check the settings. So.
Okay.
And Stacy, maybe it might work sometimes if you leave and pop back in. Well, if I'm talking, Stacy can't hear me. Haha. Okay. Let me just take a message for Stacy here. All right, we'll give Stacy a second to pop back in. This is a new platform. I know we're all used to online meetings and things by now. There's a new platform for me as well, and maybe the first time you're seeing it too. So every platform, although similar, still has its own unique characteristics as well. So we'll just make sure everybody can get settled in here. Okay, hello, Stacy. Ah, great. Okay, wonderful. That usually does the trick. Just leave and come back. Again. That was one of my secrets. I'll give you a little bit of my background as well, how I got to this point. So my name, well, obviously is Shannon. I am an early childhood development consultant with the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development. So I work with the Early Learning and Childcare branch. My focus is on the early years, 0 to 5, school age in care settings, before and after school type care settings. So I have 34 years of experience as a lifelong early childhood educator in a variety of settings and roles within our profession. So I've been a director of a program. I've worked in mostly in toddler rooms. That is where most of my experience comes, is working with toddlers. I've worked with all age groups, and most recently, I was with Nova Scotia College of Early Childhood Education. So I was an instructor there. I also helped to coordinate online learning and just became, as Kristen says in the chat, the tech person for the college and helping students and instructors and education and early childhood education is my passion. The tech stuff just happens to be a kind of like a bonus thing that I like to I like to play with technology and admit that I'm kind of a geek that way too. So hopefully, that all works out with our technology today as we get used to this new platform. So the session we're going to talk about today is thinking about the language you use with young children. And this has come about through many, many years of my being with young children and observing others with young children. And there was always just some things that I would hear that just didn't quite sit right with me, and it took me a long time to be able to articulate why that is. And reading a lot of authors and experts, and just kind of creating in my own mind an understanding of how we talk with young children and how we can be really effective in our language with young children. So I know when I sent out a little survey before, just wondering about people's areas of interest and age groups you work with. So several people did comment that they were with school-age children. So I do realize now, like when I went back and read through the descriptions of the workshops, that this one didn't actually say in the early years. So there will be a focus, and some of the examples I give will be with children from like from 0 to 5 years of age. But I do believe a lot of the information would be relevant for any setting where we're working with young children. So hopefully, you enjoy the conversation today, and I hope there will be a lot of conversation because this is something that I would just like to use as a starter to get people thinking about and talking about the words that we use. So the plan for today is going to be hopefully lots of conversation. I know some people are not comfortable going on microphone or putting on their video. If you want, you can certainly contribute in the chat settings. That's absolutely fine. The thing with online workshops is that we sometimes will hear some silence because I want to give people time to think and time to type if they want to use the chat function. So just be okay with a minute of silence while we let people gather their thoughts and write them down. If you want to join with your mic, some people like to talk more easily than they do typing. You can ask for moderation. You can ask to join the moderation, and then you can turn on your camera and or microphone. You don't have to turn your camera on. I think that as an instructor for online, there we go. As an instructor for online courses, I realize that for students and for people pretending participants, that it's quite stressful to have the camera on all the time. And I recognize and understand that completely. So there's no pressure on putting on a camera. If you want to just turn on your mic, if you have something to say, join us in the chat. That's great. Hopefully there's going to be a lot of reflection as well too, thinking back to situations and certainly as I was putting this together, I certainly had a lot of thinking about things in my times in my past and situations and encounters in my past that I thought, I could have done that differently. I don't ever want to say, I could have done that better, because we all do the best that we can do with what we have at our disposal. And, when we learn more, we do more, right? And so I hope that there'll be some reflection on that. But I think also with that reflection, there'll be lots of validation. So I expect that, as you hear information, you'll be thinking, yeah, I do that. Oh, yeah, that's great. Okay, yeah, that's something that I believe as well. And it may validate your practice a lot as well, too. And recognizing that some of this information may be not new to you. It may be maybe fairly obvious to you, and maybe it's information that you can take back with you to your colleagues and to share with others, and to help others maybe think about the words that they use as well. So that's our plan for today, and hope you enjoy. So when we think about the words that we use with young children, right, there's some basic guidelines. This is probably a very basic review for you all. I'm just going to put them up there just to kind of set the tone for the day, but also to have us remember and go through our own minds. Oh yeah, right. And sometimes you get into routines, we get into ways of being that sometimes, oh yeah, I forgot about that, right? And sometimes a nice little reminder for us is also going to be some good validation as well. So this is the basic information, but help us when we think about our conversations with children in our classrooms. So making sure you have the child's attention, right? That's something that I find is very true for transition times, especially, right? So if you're asking a child to do something or to move somewhere or to help with something like that, not just saying clean up time, standing in the middle of the room, say, okay, everybody clean up, but actually using the child's name, a hand on the shoulder or something, getting their attention and making sure that maybe you have eye contact, or that they recognize and acknowledge you, right? So make sure you have the attention, because even though you think they're hearing, they may not actually be hearing. They could be so focused on something. always get down to their level, right? Kneel, sit. I know as I'm getting older, my knees are not as limber as they used to be. So I often would try to find a chair, a child's chair, and just pull it up beside a child to sit with them. Even when I would do circle times, I just couldn't get on the floor anymore very comfortably. So I always sat in a small chair and at least getting down at their level as much as we can. So just whatever that may be, just to get down at the level, or else have them up at your level if you're holding them and talking to them like that. Remember our body language, right? The actual words that we use is about 7% of the message. So the rest of it is all nonverbal. It's all our facial expressions, our tone, right? The way our body language is. If we're standing like this over a child looking down at them, as opposed to kneeling or being at their level, arms open, right? Different messages. So children are very intuitive and they pick up on that nonverbal cues much more than we actually maybe we even think they do. So thinking about, your tone of voice, and sometimes, that the effective tone of voice maybe can work in a more firm tone of voice as well, right? So I find, that there's this meme on Facebook that, you say the child's their name and then your Batman voice comes out and then they listen, right? Like, so sometimes having a more firm tone in your voice actually does get their attention as well. So finding the balance between how we use our tone. Cassandra, using the child's name at the beginning of the ask. Absolutely. Yes. Our name is the most important thing to us, right? All of us. I don't know, even like, you feel your ears move a little bit when you hear your name. And so certainly, yeah, that's great. Thank you, Cassandra. Saying the child's name instead of just generally telling somebody, put your shoes on, right? Because they may not think that applies to them. So yes, thank you. Simple words, short sentences. So I've heard this a few times in programs, and I heard it with some of my coworkers, and again, one of those things that just didn't sit right with me, and I couldn't understand why. But the use of idioms, or the use of like those kind of sentences like it's raining cats and dogs, or let's get the show on the road, or oh, you're pulling my leg, those kind of images that we understand as adults. Children are very literal in their thinking, and so you want to say exactly what you mean as clearly as you can. Oh, children are bouncing off the walls, or something. And sometimes the coworkers would say something like, oh, for 5 cents. And I know what they were doing, and it was a way of releasing some of their energy, and it's, things like that, or someone would say, oh, sugar, or shoot, or something like that, or darn, those kind of expressions that we have. And, I always wonder what children actually think when they hear those kind of expressions. There's a book, it's called Chocolate Mousse for Supper, and it's an old book. It's in the 1970s. That's how I just aged myself. But I remember it. I remember it saying, Mommy had chocolate mousse for dinner last night, and it was literally a mousse sitting at a table looking like it's chocolate, right? And other things. It was very much 1970s. His dad says that there's an arms race and there's a bunch of arms running across a field. But, so just the words that we use, and just thinking about, how literal children are with their words. Don't be wishy-washy. So if you mean no, say no. If you say no, mean it. You don't have to necessarily say the word no, right? We don't want to overuse the word no in our conversations. I always try to find a way to say yes. How can we do this safely? But when you have to, I have to stop something, or have to, for some reason, have children pay attention, or, direct them to something else. We have to mean what you say and say what you mean. And so, well, maybe, or say it one day and then the next day no, and the next day yes, and that too, right? So just be really clear on what you're saying. Don't ask a question or opt for choice if there's not one. So so Cassandra, if I may, so for example, the Maria, could you put your shoes on? could actually give them a chance to say no. And then what do we do? Right. Well, it's not a choice, actually. We do need to have shoes on. It's a safety thing, right? You want to make sure you have shoes on in case there's a fire drill. So, Maria, I need you to put your shoes on, right? So, letting them clearly know what we need from them. Instead of saying, oh, okay, do you want to wash your hands? Right? No, I don't want to wash my hands. Well, we have to wash our hands for lunch, right? So sometimes, like, because I think we're as ECs and as educators, we want to be polite, we want to be respectful, we want to be gentle, and so, okay, can you go wash your hands, or can you go clean up the toys, or it's time to clean up, okay? Kind of things like that that gives them an opportunity to say no, or to maybe give a choice that you don't want to have. So, and also don't asking a question that you like, like just things like you want to make sure that you don't have an opportunity for them to hear it differently. So no, I don't want to wash my hands. Oh, you say, okay, Maria, I need you to put your shoes on, right? Or Maria, it's time to wash your hands for lunch, right? First wash your hands and then we'll have lunch. So just making sure, and I find that's a fairly common one, that as being polite, we want to use our manners and be polite with children, but sometimes we're giving them an out, and then when we have to say, well, actually no, you'd have to wash your hands, right? Then the mixed message is there. Don't ask questions which you already know the answer. So this is something that, again, it took me a long time to be able to articulate this, but quizzing children, what color is that? What shape is that? Another example, it works for guidance as well as like learning concepts and skills, is this the way we treat our friends? Right? Well, no, it's not. Like when a child pushes another child or something like that, right? So I think more it's I think children understand, well, if we don't know the answers, then why are, if we know the answers already, why are we asking them? And so I always used to think this just is quizzing, and we'll talk a bit more about that a little bit later in terms of the questions and how questions are worded. But there's more effective ways to develop thinking skills than to ask questions about letters, numbers, colors, those kind of things. There's ways to find out if they have that understanding without just doing questions like that. If you have to interrupt children, remember to deserve the same courtesy as we do as adults. So I think of this more with younger children and care routines, and particularly, say, with toddlers, like with most of my experiences, if we need to change a diaper, right? I see many people going in and swooping in, picking up a child, taking them to the bathroom, sometimes not even saying anything, or just say, time to get your diaper changed, and off they go. I always would stop and say, you know what, we need to change your diaper. Do you want to come now, or do you want to come in a few minutes? I mean, a few minutes, they don't know what a few minutes means, but they know that gives them a choice to say later, right? So I need to wipe your nose. I need to push your chair in. If older children, excuse me, right? Just tap on the shoulder, say, excuse me. Sorry to interrupt, but can you help me here or something, right? So you can teach, like, you can teach those manners, and it's mostly beneficial through role modeling ourselves and say, sorry to interrupt, but please, thank you. I've seen a lot of things of now, what do you say? You have the milk in your hand and you want to pass it to them, but you're not going to let go of it until they say the magic word, or things like that as well too, right? So we want to treat them like we treat ourselves, and always think about going to a restaurant, and imagine if the server pushed the chair behind me without me knowing, or just what do you say, before they drop the milk down in front of the table, or my meal in front of me too, right? So just thinking about the respect and courtesy for children. And this is a big one. This was the motivation for this workshop, was actually talking about praise and how it might be overused, and how there could be more effective ways to acknowledge and encourage children. So thinking about specifically the words "good job," and that is a phrase for me that has become more and more like I don't know. I don't know if I want to say like nails on a chalkboard because it's not that grating, but it is. I think becoming more of a more tuned into it because I have a dog and we have him now. He's almost 3, but all the training and the obedience training and that, like they're taught to say good, 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 right? And so good treat, and it's like a conditioning kind of thing. It's like a behavior conditioning response kind of thing. And well, we our children deserve much more than that, right? So we'll talk more about good job. Kristen, great. I think that that'd be great conversation once you get to that point to share more of our thoughts on that. So we'll talk more about praise versus recognition, acknowledgement, and how the studies and research is showing how effective use of the word praise we want to say or the word recognition. So those are just, like I said, 10 really basic ideas of thinking about the words that we use. Why do we talk to children? Right? We talk all day long, whether it's in, say, our care settings or even school settings, before, after school. We talk to children all day long. And what are some of the reasons? So if you want to type in the chat, go on the mic, just think about why do we talk with children? To get to know them, their likes, their interests. Learn about their processes. Yeah, things they made. Yes, Jenny, find out their ideas. Yes, help them articulate their emotions. That's so important. That could be a whole workshop by itself. Hey, Kristen, you're thinking about um, recognizing emotions and acknowledging their feelings and just letting them feel the feels instead of just distracting a sad child with a shiny object or something. Letting them feel those emotions and acknowledge and recognize those emotions. Oh yes, yes, Jenny. Tell me more about this. This is amazing. Wow, right? Like just when the ideas I come up with are just incredible. Those are, you know what? Those are really good examples of actually talking with children. Absolutely. There are kind of 4 broad reasons that I can think of why we talk with children. One of them is to provide direction or give instruction. And actually, this is more like talking to children, right? The difference between talking to children, talking with children. So we do have to give instructions, though we do have to provide direction. And when there's groups of children in the same space, they're going to have some help managing the space and moving around within that space. So there are times we do have to give directions. The guiding and redirecting behavior, that's a big part of our day as well too, right? These little ones are still figuring out all these social skills and how to get along in groups, and it's all behaviors communication. They're all trying to tell us something with their behavior, and we just got to figure out what that is. So guiding and redirecting and talking with children and working through that with them. Developing concepts and skills, which is things like like taking some of the ideas and helping expand their knowledge and things, and that we'll talk about each of these separately. And I think the examples you gave here really fall out into this shared conversations, discussions, and stories, right? That's really talking with children. That's looking at these ideas, articulating their emotions, learning about the things that they made, right? Getting to know them, right? Getting them to know you as well, and having that real back and forth. That's what I consider to be really talking with children. And so we'll look at each of these 4 in a little bit more detail. So providing directions, giving instructions, right, is a thing where we can think about our words that we use and can they be a little bit more clear even, right? Are they vague, or are they really exactly what we want to say? Sometimes there's catchphrases, right? Sometimes we're saying something we think that they should know. And I've heard people say, you should know this by now. We do this every day, right? That's another conversation as well. But we imply information. We think that they're getting the information, and we're not saying it actually really clearly. So some of these phrases that I hear in early childhood settings, I've actually like made little notes every time I've heard something. Oh, okay, that's something to explore a little bit more. And when I'm in classrooms talking with people about these things, and here's some of the catchphrases that we often hear in our settings in early childhood. Share, share the whatever, Play-Doh, trucks, blocks, share something. Crisscross applesauce, use your words. Okay, friends, manners please, or say please, or whatever variation of that. Be careful, right? So these are very common things that I've heard in early childhood classrooms. So kind of two questions to think about is, how can we rephrase those statements, and why should we? Right? There's two parts to every reflection, is thinking about what we actually do, but also digging deeper onto the why. Why is this important? Why did these phrases come up? And what are we trying to say with these phrases? And thinking about, is there another way to say them? So maybe, rephrasing them might not be the thing to do, but why should we rephrase them? So if we look back at some of these, like share the Play-Doh, what do you think? What do you think that would be a vague statement? Now we're talking here early years as well, right? So children up to 5 years of age, thinking about what the word share, what does share mean even, right? Thinking about maybe there's a bit more coming there, Jenny. Yeah, they don't really know what it means. That's okay, Jenny. I know every program's a little bit different with how the chat works too. Hey, it's just getting used to little things. Uh, they don't really know what the share even means. Share is an abstract concept, right? Share is something that is not natural, and we have to define and explain what that means, right? So we want to teach them what the word share is, but here we have a lot of Play-Doh. I'm going to give some to Timmy. I'm going to give some to Susie. And so we're going to share the Play-Doh. Each of you has some of the Play-Doh, right? Along with that is this whole, the deeper conversation around sharing, and why do we have to make children share, and how do we do it respectfully? If Tommy has all the Play-Doh and he's using it really meaningfully, and he's using it with purpose and all of that. I saw a coworker years and years ago, this child with blocks, and had these huge towers of blocks, and it was really elaborate, and it had people, and it had dinosaurs and I don't know, all kinds of things stacked all over, but he had all the blocks that were in this container. And the teacher said, you have to share the blocks, and just went over and took some of the blocks and gave it to another child. And I could see this child's face, and he was just like stunned, and so, the intention of the instructor, the educator, I'm not judging. I can understand, that how we feel that we have to show, equality in our classrooms and all of that. And so just remember seeing that child's face and thinking, well, why did he have to share that? You know what? Sometimes it's part of those social skills. Tommy's using all the blocks now. So when he's done, we'll make sure you have some, right? So Tommy, when you're done, can you give some to Susie? right? And so then you can share the blocks when you're finished, right? So using the word share is arbitrary sometimes, and we want to be more purposeful with that. And sometimes if you see a child doing this with all the cars, you know, and you've seen this, that they have all the cars inside their arms and looking around, not letting anyone use them, touch them, or they're not using them themselves. Yeah, right, Kristen. Yeah. And they're just like making sure no one else can have them. That's a different conversation, right? Is how are they using the materials? And so sometimes even, you know, in those cases when they're hoarding the stuff and they won't share, or they won't let anyone, you know, say, okay, you know what, I see you have a lot that you're not using. Which one do you want to give to Susie? You know, that kind of, again, it doesn't give them, you know, doesn't give them a chance to say no. Your expectations that, you know, we need to share some of these. And, you know, which ones do you want to give to Susie? You need to share some. And so you can say, oh, how about that one, right? So the whole thing shares, that's a whole other conversation, I think, as well too. But just want to put that little bug in your ear as well, is thinking about sharing, and when do we share, why do we share it, and how can we do it with respect to both people who are in the space. Crisscross applesauce. When just can just say, oh, cross your legs, a circle time. Going a little deeper there, why do they have to sit cross-legged at circle time? I would have circle time with my toddlers, and I know circle time is another workshop as well, isn't it, around how we use group times with young children. I let my children stand. I let them sit on a little ledge. They could lay down, they could sit on the floor. But it was, and these are toddlers that understood this. It was always, if you want to stand, that's fine. But stand over here so you're not blocking someone's view. If you want to lay down, great. But you know what? When you lay there, your feet are going to kick Jenny or whatever. Not Jenny. Jenny. Just kick Susie. I always use Susie is always my name. I pull up. So if you want to lay down, move yourself so your feet aren't going to kick somebody else, right? It's about just letting them have that individuality, and if they want to sit, how comfortably they want to sit, and then they're more likely to help focus as well. I don't like sitting cross-legged. I never really just like sitting cross-legged. Even in assemblies in the gym, I remember that as a kid, sitting on the cold concrete floors of the gyms and having assemblies and being wiggly because it was uncomfortable, right? So, and having them sit in a circle, I would hold the book up, because if you have them sitting in a circle, like from over here, you can't even see the book, right? So I would always hold them. Here's where the book is. Now you make sure you can sit where you can see it, and let people shuffle around a little bit so they can move somewhere where they can actually see the book, right? So just even so, there's two parts to this, right? Is the actual words to be used, but thinking more deeply about those words. And again, I wanted to say, create a yes environment. How can I make this work? And part of it is like, okay, well, yeah, sure, why can't they stand? Just go stand over there, right? It's the same thing with anything. My philosophy around that was thinking that climbing is not the issue for young children. Climbing is a very natural thing for children to do, but climbing on the bookshelf is the issue. So let's find a way to climb safely. Throwing snowballs, fun, great in the wintertime. Throwing snowballs at people's faces is the issue, right? So teach them how to throw snowballs safely. Let's throw at the tree, at the fence, making sure there's nobody around in front of them. That's what I was talking about with thinking about creating a yes environment. So this whole crisscross applesauce kind of goes against how I think about letting them just sit how they want. And it doesn't create chaos. It doesn't create anarchy. It's, they're comfortable and they recognize that you respect that. Use your words. I had a very good friend, Liz Hicks. Some of you may know Liz Hicks as well. She tells a story of a little guy she heard in the center. The educator said, use your words. And the little guy goes around, words, 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 words. And, understanding the intention behind that use your words means what you're trying to say is, it's not okay to hit, right? We need to tell people how we feel about it, right? So that's what we're trying to say, but it's just a quick, use your words. It's quick, right? Because you're so busy in the classroom all day long that you feel sometimes you don't got time to sit down and actually explain this to children, and think that maybe they don't understand. There could be lots of reasons why, but give them the words to use, right? Manners, please. I find to give the example of, not letting go of the milk until they say, what's the magic word, right? They pick that by role modeling, just being very conscious of that ourselves. And thank you. I appreciate that, right? So just role modeling, I think, is a more effective way than just accepting that from them. Be careful. Again, what does careful mean, right? So tell them what you see. I'm worried you're getting very high on the play structure. I'm worried, or I'm scared, I'm nervous. Like using the I messages is very powerful for young children. So let's think about this. How are you going to get down from here, right? And so instead of saying be careful, if you're always saying be careful, be careful, be careful, then children are going to start getting a little, like, maybe anxious, something too. I don't know. But again, careful, share, these are all very abstract words, right? That we need to think that children thinking so literally. And okay, friends. So friends is another word for me that's kind of like a word, because they're not all friends. And I worry about the word friend becoming so trivialized. I think, Facebook friends, it's all about how many friends do you have on Facebook, or like, just, it's like, I'm not friends with every person I work with every person I meet, right? We have to get along with each other, but there's not many. Like, there's some, of course. I've had some really good friends over the years with my work colleagues becoming friends. But I wouldn't go to coffee with every one of my coworkers after work, right? So there's a difference between a friendship and an acquaintance, or being respectful with other people. Christy Clasham stopped using friends as a term. Right. Thank you, Kristen. Perfect example of that too, right? I would say toddlers, and like, okay, toddlers, let's go. Okay, preschoolers, or the first daycare I worked at 30 years ago. Every group had a name, right? So there was like the teddy bears, the Care Bears. I think the schoolers called themselves the polar bears. I think the preschoolers, like Care Bears, Panda Bears. Anyway, so I said, okay, come on, teddy bears. That was a toddler group at the time. It's it's just there's a way to get a group's attention, and I now just would say toddlers, preschoolers. Cassandra, rebuttal. What's easy to respond with? Well, they're all my friends. Yes, and you know what? And I've said that in the past. Oh, please, oh, my friend. Oh, we need to be careful, my friend, right? And so, yeah, they're definitely our friends, but I don't want to arbitrarily say to their friends the other, like, especially when they're angry at each other, right? They're not friends. Even toddlers, I see some toddlers that they have preferences, and there's some children that they would prefer not to play with, right? And so I think back to when I was in school, and we had to do Valentine's Day cards, and I remember saying to my mom, how come I have to do one for Casey? Casey's so mean, because he was a bully. I recognize now. And my mom just said, because you have to. And not, absolutely no problem with that, but like, not judging at all that response. But after so many years of thinking about the friends, and okay, well, what she's wanted to say is we have to respect each other. We don't have to like each other all the time, but we have to respect each other. I think that's what that's what it is more for me, is the friend. Like, I have a few friends. I have a few friends, but I don't have a lot of friends who I call friends, a lot of acquaintances. But I don't, very few people I call really good friends, and those are very special people to me. So I think it may be a bit of that, that my personal values around the word friendship, but also I don't want to be disingenuous with children either. And Cassandra, that he's not my friend, absolutely, right? And so I think I actually have an example of, do we do that to our friends later on, so we can come back to that conversation a bit more too. So that's a fabulous example. So remembering that children are literal in their thinking, but lots of words are abstract, right? So we talked about share, kind, nice, good, cooperative, friendly. Those are really abstract concepts, right? And we know that up until age 5, even between 5 and 7, we know the research shows that children are very literal in their thinking until between the ages of 5 and 7. And so many of our concepts are abstract. Even the concept of time, right, is abstract, like calendars and days of the week. Like those are abstract terms that young children just can't conceptualize yet, right? And there's a reason why the Nordic countries in Sweden, they don't go to formalized school until they're age 7, because they recognize that the importance of that play-based time in the early years, and that but their brain needs to be ready to take on a lot of those abstract concepts. So we can still explain these concepts, but do them with very concrete language and examples, right? So lots of repetition in that as well too. They're not going to pick things up the first time, right? And I'm respecting and understanding that as well. So we want to explain clearly. We want to use a variety of sentences, right? So you can explain the same thing in different ways, and helps them to make sense of that word, right? Gives them more information. Expand their understanding of the world around them, right? We want them to become aware of other people and other things in that too. So we can do that with the words that we use. So another part of the first one on giving instructions, right? We have to tell the children what to do. That is the reality, but we can do it in a way where, figuring out how to be a part of a group, and they don't have a lot of experience with words and relationships yet, right? I saw that a lot of times when they came into my toddler room. Sometimes it was their very first experience in group care. Sometimes it's their first time ever being away from family. And so when you think about a child who's 3 years old, they've been on the earth now for around 1,000 days. And I keep that in my mind all the time, and thinking about by the time they go to primary, it's about 1,800 days or something, and thinking how much they've learned in that amount of time. But they've only been on this earth for 1,000 days or 1,800 days. And like we have to sometimes just give them a little bit of understanding of that as well too, they're still figuring a lot out. So sometimes we misinterpret child's actions as a behavioral issue, rather than it's just I'm not understanding how to manage within a group setting. So here's an example, fairly often in common experience. Preschoolers run to the playground, Susie pushes George, or she runs to get one of the tricycles, right? So that's a common, whatever it may be, child's in my way, I need to get there out of my way, I need to get to my goal, and something's in my way. And so often the response is, now is that how we treat our friends? Right? And so again, a question that we already know the answer to. And the word friend, and they don't know, haven't had enough experience with that. So we could say that, or something like, Susie, tell George that he's in your way, you can ask him to try to move, you can ask him to move, right? So this has happened after the fact. The child's pushed each other, and then oh, you can ask them to move. And I think it's also important to give tools to the other child. So Susie, is that how I treat our friends? Or we could say, now George, tell Susie you don't like it when she pushes you, right? So we can give both children some tools to be able to manage in that situation. So, that's the difference between giving helpful instructions, right? It's not behavior. It's not that she's pushy or a bully, anything like that at all. There's a goal and something's in her way and she wants to get there. So just help learn that, she can't just push someone out of the way when she wants something. So we do that with conversation. We do that with examples and modeling and coming together. Here's another word for me that is one that I've thought a lot about over the years as well too, right? And so if we go back to we don't hit our friends now, say sorry to her, right? So we think about when we use the word sorry, right? So in us as adults, like, when do we use the word sorry? It's either for something that I've done something wrong and I regret, and I'm sorry that I did that. I'm sorry I was late, that was disrespectful. I'm sorry I ripped your book, or I'm sorry I got your book wet, it fell out of my hands into a puddle, right? So use when we feel sorrow, regret, or something that we have done something to somebody else. Another way that we use sorry in society is that I feel empathy towards you. I'm sorry something happened to you. I'm sorry I'm sorry your car got hit. A coworker of mine, actually, they were in a car accident. I'm sorry that happened to you, right? I'm sorry you lost your job. I'm sorry something, so you feel empathy for somebody, right? So we use sorry, the word sorry, in a few different ways. When I was in Italy a few years ago, I learned some words, and I learned that there's actually used two different words for sorry. They use like scusi for, oh, sorry, I bumped into you. Oh, scusi, right? I think it's dispatche is sorry something's happened to you, right? So they actually have different words for those situations. We use sorry in both cases, right? And so we learn from the context of what the word sorry actually means, right? I'm sorry that happened to you, or I'm sorry I did that to you. So, do any of us feel sorry when we're angry? Right? We want to think about the words, how we feel when we're angry. And this is the same for children as well, too, right? When they got that anger, right? Like children, they'll push, they'll pull, they'll hit each other. They're learning to get what they want, what they need. And we have to understand that. We can't allow that to happen. That's not the way that you can get what you want and need, right? We think about all the things that children are dealing with. They have, rudimentary language skills. They don't have a lot of words to say what they mean. They have strong feelings. They feel life out loud, right? They live at 100%. They're passionate. And when they want and need something, and they don't get it, they get angry, right? We all get angry. We all have those feelings. And so teachers don't know what to do with it, right? And so that emotion has to come out of our bodies, all of us somehow. And with children, it's either through their legs, their arms, or doing something, right? And so they're not sorry in the moment, right? When you're angry, you're not sorry. You become sorry after, when you're like, oh, geez, I shouldn't have done that, right? And so thinking about how we use the word sorry. If they're not sorry, then we should not be asking them to tell someone that they're sorry. This is something, again, that we can model for children, right? I'm so sorry you tripped. Oh my goodness. What do you need? Right? I'm so sorry that happened to you, and when someone's angry, and if they do hurt their child, I focus my attention on their child. I'm sorry that happened to you, right? What do you need right now? Like things like that too, right? So I don't know if you've heard of Haim Ginot. I don't know if I'm saying his name properly. He was a German educator. Really, I realized was very influential in my early years of my career. Um, he was a scholar in the 60s, and he was a teacher and a great educator. Look up his work. It's actually really validating for this kind of conversation. Like, he was ahead of his time in terms of validating children's feelings and thinking about the words they use. But this is what he said about sorry. When adults coerce an apology from a young child, they are indeed teaching them to tell their first lies. Any thoughts on that? Sorry, my house is very close to the street, so you just heard a big truck go up the street. Any thoughts on that statement? I really recommend looking into his work. It's very powerful, and actually, when I said I didn't realize that he influenced my early years of my career, there was a book in the 90s that was very popular. It's called How to Talk So Your Kids Will Listen, How to Listen So Your Kids Will Talk. And the authors were Adele Faber and Elaine, I lost the last name. But I actually saw them at a conference. This is my early years of my career in Regina. And so I moved out here 22 years ago now, 23 years ago now. they brought Adele Faber and Elaine into a conference, and they were one of the first keynotes I ever heard that just absolutely probably set my practice right there with their words. But they studied Haim Ginott. I have to learn how to say his name properly. And so that's why I guess this really stuck with me too. Stacy, you have that book, right? Yeah, I used to have a copy because when they came to the conference, I had a copy of the book. I had them sign it, and then I lent the book out. Never got it back. Yeah. Oh, good. So it's still being used. That's good. It's kind of hasn't been talked about as much as it used to be, I don't think. But I have a list at the end to give you the book name. But How to Talk So Kids Will Listen. It's written for families. It's written to parents. But I think that the concepts are very applicable to us educators as well. Yeah, so Kristen, they just hurt someone. Yeah, they're not sorry. Yeah, they did someone on purpose, right? So sorry is for accidents. So yeah, so I'm just gonna leave that there, and just let that percolate up through the days. So another reason we talk with children is guiding behavior. So this is not going to be not a rush book guidance strategies, things like that, but how we can use our guidance strategies and thinking about the words that we use when we are using our guidance strategies. So in fact, labels, whatever, sometimes, oh, they're misbehaving or they're naughty, or, like we know we don't call them naughty. We know we don't call them bad. Like, we know that young children are just trying their best. But when they're in the middle of that misbehavior and the frustrations and everything like that too, right, it's hard to remember sometimes that they're doing the best they can with what they know, right? And that our job is to help them, right, to figure out what they're trying to tell us with their behavior and how we can help them work through that. So our reactions kind of help or hinder that. Right. So we're going to look at some examples of some of our reactions that I've heard in the past in classrooms when it comes to child guidance, behavior management. That's an older term, but when it comes to child guidance practices, some of the phrases that I've heard. So hands to yourself. No, thank you. Walking feet. Be gentle. That's not nice. Inside voices. Why did you do that? How would you like it if she did that to you? Right? Fairly common phrases, maybe. Any others you think of that might be along those lines? Feel free to put them in the chat as well. Let's look at them again and just think about, why did I highlight these, and what could be a reason for them, and what maybe could be a more effective way. So we look at no thank you. Another one of those little catchphrases that I hear a lot. There's like, what does that even mean, right? Like, oh, no thank you, no thank you. We're trying to be polite, absolutely, I get it. Trying to model manners, but you say no thank you when someone wants to give you something, or no thank you, I'm not thirsty right now, or something like that, right? It's not giving them information. It's not telling them what to do, right? Like I remember I just popped in my head with this example of lunchtime, and they were giving children all their plates and their spoons and cups, and there's no food, and of course they're starting to bang and things. Oh, no thank you, and takes the spoons away, right? And instead of expanding on that. Kristen, you're saying no, but then thanking them for doing the thing you don't want them to do. Right? Thank you. Right? So separating the no from the thank you. They again, literal thinkers. So yeah, so you're separating that, right? So it's not giving them information, not telling them what to do, or what is it that needs to stop. Hands to yourself, right? That's not specific enough. Right? So what does that even mean? Why did you do that? They don't know. They don't know why they did that. Like, they can't articulate that. Like, emotions, like a young child's not going to say, I was really angry because he had the toy and I wanted it. Like, they have to they have to they can't make the connection between their actions and their feelings yet and their motivations. So, they don't know. So asking that again, you don't know the answer. So they just often I see that and they just kind of look blankly at you, like that. Be gentle. I've also seen gentle hands. I actually was talking to educators in a toddler room recently where they have a new child who's a biter and also a grabber. So we'll grab the cheeks, we'll grab the arms, the hair, like like very young, first experience in group care, right? And so they were saying, "Oh, gentle hands," and trying to be very polite. And they would take his hand and they would do this, or they would do this. And I said to them, I said, "Do we do that in our society? Do I come up to you and I do this to you?" Like, gentle hands, what, again, what does that mean? And I know the intention, what they're trying to say to the child, right? And it's so it can be, especially with a biter, you say, "Oh, I can't let you do that," and you have to be a shadow and you've got to stop them from doing something. But with the gentle hands, like, we don't do this in our, in our society. And so there's other ways that you can explain how to be gentle with people and explain what the word gentle even means, right? So define that. What does it mean to be gentle? That's not nice. Again, nice. What does nice mean, right? What does that word mean to be nice? And different people have different ideas of what it means to be nice. So inside voices, right? Well, how loud's the inside voice? Right. So just say, "I need you to be quieter. That's too loud." Or sometimes I remember saying, "That hurts my ears. That's too loud for inside." How would you like that if she did that to you? Right. They can understand hypotheticals. Yeah. Can they? Like, can they really think, "Oh, geez, I wouldn't feel very good." Right. So either they're learning not good or they're learning how to answer to that, but they don't really understand those hypotheticals, I don't think. So again, you're in the moment, you've got to respond, you've got to stop a situation from happening. And sometimes these kind of phrases come out, but I think with intention, right, that we can be more thoughtful with how we do respond to them. So, it's not specific strategies. We're not looking at all the different tools out there's a whole toolbox of ideas and strategies, and it's different for every child and every situation and every classroom and all that, right? But if we look at our language and how effectively we can use language when we intervene, right? Things like matching your tone of voice to the situation, right? So if a child really hurts somebody and squeeze their arm so tight that you can see the imprints and that, right? Oh, gentle hands, right? It's okay to be firm. It's okay to say that needs to stop, right? And it's okay to separate the children so that you can stop the child from getting hurt, right? And so when you say that needs to stop, and they see that in your face, "Oh, gentle hands," right? So it's okay to match your tone of voice to the situation. Um, say no or stop, but use it sparingly, right? Because when you say the word no, then they'll really listen. If you say no all the time, "No, thank you, no, thank you, no, no, stop, no, this," right? It just becomes part of the background. Avoid vague or wishy-washy requests, right? I find it really powerful when "I need you to," dot, 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 right? They seem, even toddlers seem to really respond to that well. Tell them what they can do instead of unacceptable behavior, right? So, or even substitute the behavior, right? So, oh no, you ripped the book. Oh, you know what? If you want to rip, come over here. Let's rip some of this paper. This newspaper is good paper to rip. But depending on the age of the child, you can have the child help you fix the book, things like that too. But tell them what's an appropriate way. Oh, you know what? Climbing the bookshelf might break that bookshelf. You want to climb? Let's make a bunch of pile of pillows over here. We can climb on the pillows, right? So it's just the words that we use and how we can turn things around into a yes environment, but being more effective with the words. How are we doing? Would people like a 5-minute break? I know it's only 2 hours, but still, it's a lot of time sitting in front of a computer screen as well. So, how are people thinking? We could do 5-minute break. Sure. Okay. They're good either way. Right, well, why don't we take a 5-minute break? I think it's important to get up and move, stretch, get some water if you need to. So it's 10:30 right now. So let's join again at 10:30. And if you have any thoughts in the meantime, you can put them in the chat, or I don't know if there's a way in here to send a private message. I know there's a Q&A, isn't there? There's a Q&A section. If you have any questions as they come up, you can add them in the Q&A panel within the chat window there. But yeah, let's take 5 minutes then, and we'll start again at 10:35. Okay, welcome back. Hope you're able to get up and stretch at least. I know working in classrooms, it's we don't often sit for long stretches of time. So I can appreciate the importance of getting up to move around. Okay, so so far so good. I hope this is what you were expecting, or hoping that it's good content for you. So we'll continue our conversation around conversations and words. The third reason that we talk with young children is around looking at developing skills and concepts. Right. So as early childhood educators, as educators, right, we know that's part of our role is to educate. I know there's lots of conversation around we don't want to lose the care element of the work that we do, but we also are here to help children make sense of the world. So if we look at how children learn and opportunities for children to learn, let's think about they learn through their play, they learn by watching others, they learn through experiences, experimenting, testing out things out, just learn by doing, ideas from their peers. So if they see something someone else does, that gives them an idea, right? They imitate their peers. They learn from their mistakes. I think we don't let children make enough mistakes. That's a whole other workshop as well. In terms of letting children experience failure and building resiliency from that and figuring out what to do, how to keep going. But anyway, and they learn from conversations, modeling, systematic instruction, right? So you think about all of that. How many of those involve us as educators, right? And I think that in some way, all of those opportunities in there's a role for us to play, right? In terms of play, we're interacting with them, we're engaging with children, right? We're setting up an environment where they can experiment and they can have experiences, and it's stimulating, and they want to do things in that environment, right? Conversations, modeling, some mistakes, like helping them work through mistakes if something doesn't go right. So the word systematic instruction, right? That's something that we don't hear very often, I don't think. And it's something that I worry is getting a little bit, I don't want to say the word lost, but as we understand more about, child-led curriculum and play-based curriculum and things, and I worry that sometimes people are taking that to be that we're more hands-off. But there's still things that we can teach to children. So systematic is different than direct instruction. Direct is where everybody sits down at the table and you all do the same thing at the same time, right? So that used to be the norm in our early childhood programs. This is large group time or a small group time, and every teacher would take their group to their table and they would do something at the same time. And so research and best practice is beginning to show that might not be the most effective way to develop skills and concepts. Child initiated, play based, all of these other ways of emergent curriculum, those kind of things are coming out as an understanding, but I don't think it's fully understood yet, right? And so I see a lot of people say, well, that the child, that's the children's, it's their plan, it's their thing, so they just kind of back off, right? We understand that, right? We don't have as many adult directed times. We want to have more child initiated times in our day. But that's where we sometimes we think that we don't have a role to play in that then, right? That is just sitting back more so and observing and watching what's happening. But in fact, I think it actually should be it's called a co-constructed curriculum, right? That you're working together, you should be very much a part of that. And so part of that is within this play-based environment, setting up opportunities where children can learn a progression of skills, right? And so it's okay to give them instruction in some things, right? It's not like the direct instruction, right? It's not where you're all together at the same time. It's seeing an interest of a child or seeing something that maybe they need some more information on how to do it. So here's an example of systematic instruction, right? Learning to tie shoes. That's systematic instruction. We've all had someone teach us how to tie shoes. It's not something that a child will just naturally pick up during their play experiences. We have to provide opportunities for them to do that. And we have to give direct instruction to them. Do this, do this. And there's different ways to do it, right? I learned I don't know, Chris, like that, but then someone showed me about the bunny ear way of tying them. But someone shows us how to tie our shoes. Right? It's okay sometimes to give some instruction in a systematic way. So other examples, right? Sue Stacy, who is another very influential, very lucky to be local to Nova Scotia. She's written four books for sure on observing children, immersion curriculum, and understanding this deep understanding of how children, what kind of environment we should have for children. And she talks about art, and that there's actually technique to art, right? There's certain ways that you have to use materials. And so it's okay to teach how to use art materials, like markers. I remember one child had a marker and was doing this with the marker, bang, 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 on really hard on the paper, and it ruined the marker, right? Because it would push the nib up into the thing, and it ruined the marker, and that always bothered me, right? Because respect for materials and how to use materials properly, right? Teach them to put the lids back on the markers, because then they won't dry out. Teach them how to use glue. With my toddlers, I just let them experience glue, right? I just let them, we had trays and we had little glue pots with the glue stick, and let them just experience how glue moves and the sticky, and and just spread it around first to figure out what this material is, and then next class we start talking about how glue can be used, right? Paintbrushes, like to do watercolors, like a proper art technique of watercolor is you have a rinsing pot and you rinse the brush and then you swirl it around. So it's okay to teach that kind of direct instruction, like how to use art materials with respect to keep them, but also, a proper technique for art. Buttoning, zippering, washing hands, brushing teeth, those kind of things. Those are all things that children could try, but to refine, brushing teeth, there's actual technique to it, right? And that using utensils and how to cut food, and that's all done. Zippering, sometimes you see when they're starting to get interest in zippering, and you can help them with that, and the buttoning. So negotiating conflict problem solving, right? That's something that doesn't come naturally, and so you can give systematic instruction in the moment for that. I tend to think about the gross motor skills, right? Because I'm a softball player, not anymore though, but I played softball my entire life, and so I like sports, and I think about sports, and there's actual technique to throwing a ball in a sporting event kind of way, or technique to holding a bat. Kicking a ball in soccer is, it's a very specific techniques and things, and that pumping a swing. I don't know if anyone ever learned to pump a swing without someone saying, how to use momentum and use your legs, right? Like that's something that I was taught, and I taught a lot of children how to pump their legs to move the swing, riding a bike, swimming, right? So it's okay to teach systematically some skill development, and to not just leave things completely like open-ended and child-lit, right? There has to be a balance there. So thinking about how we respond to wrong information as well. That's another way of correcting information, systematic instruction, and thinking like, how do we respond when there's wrong information? How do we let children learn and discover that their information maybe was not accurate, right? Here's an example from my experience. I was in the bathroom with my toddlers, and the preschooler, we shared the bathroom with the preschoolers, and this boy preschooler said, boys can't be ballerinas. And like, oh, well, And so being a preschooler, and I'm a toddler teacher, I saw this preschool teacher and said, I just heard this. Can I just explore this with Thomas? And she's like, sure. So she came to the toddler room. I went to the preschool room with the laptop, and I put on a video of Mikhail Baryshnikov. And I didn't say anything. I said, oh, let's watch this. And he was absolutely transfixed. He was really interested in what the cod piece or whatever, the covering on the boy ballerinas. But I didn't say, oh, no, they can't. Boys, yes, they can be ballerinas, right? I just put on the video, and it was, I think, 45 minutes I was in there with them, other children coming over and watching it as well. But this little guy was absolutely transfixed by it, right? So, how could you respond to that in a way that is not directive, but yet also gives them opportunities to find things out for themselves? And so, that's in the words that we use can be very, very influential there as well, too. So, we want to correct information that surfaces as they have ideas and test out things in their play, right? We want to absolutely address stereotypes, right? Things like, boys can't marry boys, or only boys can marry girls, or, different stereotypes that you may come up in your play. It's a fine balance, though. Right? This is a tricky one, because it's our responsibility to make meaning for the children, but we also have to respect the children's family and their values and things too, right? So this is always a fine line of responding to their questions and their statements, right? We want to engage in conversation during free play, right? So careful questioning. I wonder where that information is coming from. Oh, what makes you think that? What have you seen that makes you think that? Listening carefully, thinking before we speak, and not just, oh yes, boys can marry boys, but just thinking carefully about that, and understanding the family, even like things like around names for body parts, right? I've heard all kinds of names for body parts in the bathroom, and well, is it our job to teach them the proper words like vagina and penis? Families have different thoughts around that too, right? So this is a tricky one. This requires a lot of conversation and relationships with families, right? And getting to know what their values and beliefs are as well too. But it's helpful when we use language that helps children think things through for themselves, right? So example like, oh, can you think of another way to do that? Or what do you know about ballerinas? What would happen if you tried this instead, or something, right? If they're struggling with figuring out a project, maybe they figured out a ramp or something and it's not working. What would happen if you tried that, right? So just giving them some guidance and some direction instead of just telling them the answer, which, as educators, we need to teach, but there are other ways that we can teach that let them figure it out for themselves. So that's often done through asking questions. Right? So there's difference in closed-ended, open-ended questions, right? Questions are used to get information. And we want to watch with our closed-ended questions, right? This develops convergent thinking, right? Many educators think that we need children to give us the right answers. And this convergent thinking is where, like, you're putting all the pieces together to get one solution. And there's a place for convergent thinking, absolutely. Open-ended questions encourage divergent thinking, and in our youngest children, right, we need them to be able to think of all the possibilities, right? So getting many options with many unusual solutions could come out of that. There's no one right answer. So when you're thinking about closed-ended questions like, what color is this? How many legs does a spider have? What shape is this? Is this a fruit or a vegetable? Sometimes there's a place for these types of questions as a conversation starter. What's your favorite color? Blue. Oh, mine is too. I've got a blue car and I've got a blue house and my jacket is blue, and and it can be the starter for conversations. If you want to think about like open-ended questions, what do you think? Oh, what happened if? That seemed to be the one I went to most. I wonder what would happen if. And toddlers, again, with toddlers, they might not know the answers, but I would always start out with, I wonder what would happen if we tried that. Let's see, right? And I realized I would do this. I said, I wonder, because I saw a toddler do that once, and she goes, I wonder. And then when I saw her doing this, I thought, I guess I'm exaggerating the thinking pose maybe, but what would happen if? How else could you do it? What could you do to fix it? Right. So different ways of starting the conversations, getting them to figure out the answers for themselves. So thinking of questions, do you have any questions, thoughts, ideas at this point? Things you're still wondering about, or direction that is going? We're going to spend the rest of the time looking at conversation, talking with children, like the last point that we highlighted at the beginning of the session, the ways we talk for children, with children. So no, okay, great. If you do, there's the Q&A section, or just let me know. So the rest of the time, we're going to focus more on conversations, discussions, stories, and then we'll finish off exploring a little more deeply with like the praise, as we're going to finish off our conversations today. So what we say and what children hear, right? Again, thinking about some of those idioms that we use, some of those phrases, you can see that Miss Clark told her class, a rolling stone gathers no moths. The school nurse looked through everyone's hair to make sure we don't have any headlights. Daddy, are you feeling under the weather or over the weather? Mommy, Billy's using the guest towel. Right. So just things that in our normal conversations, and children can see it a really see it a different way. I'm going to tell you a story. One of the biggest epiphanies I ever had. Again, toddlers. So this little guy was Christopher, and maybe 2.5 by then. So at the center I worked at, we had access to the gym at St. Mary's University, and so we would go there every couple of weeks or so. And sometimes we couldn't go right into the gym because there would be an exercise class in there. So we would sit outside and wait. And beside the gym were some squash courts. And so we would talk about the people if they're playing squash, and talk about the sounds that we were hearing and the rackets. And often there'd be squash balls around that we would talk about, and have them hold the squash balls and bounce the squash balls. A couple of times even got into a squash court, and we listened to the echo, talking all about the game of squash. And we would watch people play, and then we would say, yay, and we'd cheer when they get a point, and the toddlers would cheer, and they'd have no idea why, but they would cheer. And having great conversations, thinking, it's very, very meaningful conversations. Separate conversation completely about lunchtime. We would often take children down to the kitchen, talk to our cook, what's for lunch today? She would show them the ingredients she's working on. Once a month, we would have squash with, I think it was like salmon cakes, fish cakes and squash. And so she would talk about the vegetable. Oh, having squash today. Here's the squash, and the squash grows in the garden. We'd have all these conversations about the vegetable, and every time we had squash at lunch, we talked about the vegetable and things. And this little guy, Christopher, one day he comes to me in the classroom, and he's got these little wooden balls. He goes, "Do you want some squash balls from the garden?" And I just, oh my gosh. First of all, the capacity for that little brain to take that information and assimilate it in that way is incredible, right? And me not realizing the different use of the word squash, and thinking, oh yeah, that is the same word, right? So we were having great discussions. I thought we were having some great discussions separately, and he saw that as squash balls from the garden, right? And so I thought it was brilliant, and just another reminder for me to think about the words that we use. I talked a little bit already about talking to children, right? We did share a little bit about that earlier as well too, and thinking about the difference. And that this last section that looks at discussions and conversations is really about talking with children, right? Really listening. Stop what you're doing, right? And just put down the paperwork for a minute, and just be down at their level, and I'm here, I want to listen. Expressions, and things you can say to keep the conversation going. Oh, that's interesting. Oh no, what happened next? Wow, really? Has anyone else experienced that, right? And so if you sit at the lunch table or something like that, and just say, oh, then what happened? Right? That's often the one I would go to. Oh, really? Oh, wow. Well, then what happened? And try to encourage a conversation to continue on, right? Make sure your environment has opportunities for you to be able to comfortably sit with children. Whether it's pillows in the corner, or some chairs set up in a conversational type arrangement, bringing interesting things in the classroom to spark conversations, right? So we're not going to go any more about that, but just thinking about, okay, check, yeah, okay, yeah, and making sure that we try to have opportunities to have those conversations with children. Any other thoughts or ideas, strategies around how we can do that? All right, well, always feel free to share in the chat. Yeah, so that, just a little bit around the conversation discussions, because I know, I get the sense that this is exactly what happens in the classrooms, right? That lots of conversation and lots of opportunities. So I want to finish off with talking about praise versus encouragement. And this may not apply to you, but maybe it applies to coworkers. Maybe it's something in the past that you've heard before, and again, haven't been able to articulate. But I want to tie this into some research to really emphasize how we can be more effective with acknowledging children. And so, what's wrong with praise? Right? Well, we can use praise too much. I think the more you use it, the less meaningful it becomes. Children can get addicted to praise. I've heard the term praise junkies. And I remember 30 years ago, I remember a child, her name is Raylene, and she's school age, 6 years old. And I was in the kitchen cleaning up after lunch, and I said, "Hey, Raylene, can you wipe the tables for me? Here's a cloth. Can you clean up the tables for me?" She goes, "What will I get if I do it?" And I was kind of taken aback. I'm like, "The biggest hug you ever gotten." And she goes, "No, I'm not doing it then." And she dropped the cloth and walked away. Whoa. So that was a eye opener. But and I was thinking about myself growing up as well too, and my family was very much about, you got to get good grades and all of this, and the reward for grades in my report card was, I think it was like $5 for every A that I got on my report cards, and that's all it became about, was I had to get an A, I have to get an A, I have to get an A, I want to get my money, right? And so becoming addicted to that praise. May become dependent on needing validation from others, right? And here, am I a good boy? Am I a good girl? Am I smart? Am I fast? Am I right? And not getting that from within themselves. Praise also could put our values on the child, right? Because what we're saying is, oh, I like when you ... Oh, thank you. I like that. Good listening, right? So we're putting our values in the child. Not to say values are not right or wrong; they just are for each of us, right? But we don't want to, have to give the child a chance to have their own values too. Sometimes put that pressure on the child, like back to me, I got to get A's, I got to get A's, I got to get A's, right? And if they get praise, they feel like they have to live up to that praise. Sometimes it's used as a manipulation / bribe. Like, if you get all A's, I'm going to give you $5 for each A. And the bribes. What does that leave? What does that give children for motivation, right? And internal versus external. Chris, did a child like this last year? Mother just said to keep praising him is excessive. That's a good example. Yeah, the pressure, right? Being a good boy. And sometimes, the manipulation is a strong word. But sometimes it has been used to get children to do what you want them to do. I still see sticker charts in classrooms. I've had a couple of conversations with people around sticker charts, and the fact that some would have 10, 15, 20 stars, others would have 2 or 3. right? Obviously not motivating the ones with 2 or 3 stars. That's a whole other conversation too. That could be a whole other workshop. But looking at reward charts and those kind of things too, is in terms of motivation. Children may be obeying because the teacher wants them to, not because they want to, right? So this, am I having a good day? Am I being a good boy? Right? They're doing it because they think that they have to. So, lots of thoughts there around praise and how it might not be always as effective as we would want it to be. If we put it back on ourselves, again, I keep thinking, I think about my experience growing up in a household that was very much about you've got to get good grades and all of that too. Um, thinking about even as adults how we respond to praise. So here's a couple of scenarios. So you have an unaccepted guest for dinner. You heat up a can of chicken soup, add some leftover chicken, and serve it over minute rice. And your guest says, "Oh, you're such a great cook." Right? What would your inner reaction be to that? Think about how would you feel in that? Kristen talked about how one of my goals was to stop using sentences like "good job." Yes, Kristen, right. I'm so proud of you. Yeah, so we'll talk about what could we say instead of that too. So that'd be a great tie into that. So in this situation, I'm thinking, wow, I feel I was judged, and honestly not a good cook, condescending to me. Wow, that's a powerful word, very condescending, right? So I think either she's lying or else she knows nothing about good food. Right? So that makes me doubt her, makes me suspicious of her, right? Like condescending, like what's her motivation here? What's going on? Right? What is she trying to get out of me or something? Is she trying to butter me up, right? That whole cliche there. So praise can make you doubt the praiser. Maybe it was a good thought. Right? Maybe. How about this situation? You've been wearing leggings and hoodie all day long, going on errands, doing things like that, and then it's time to go meet friends until you change into a dress. One of your friends says, "Oh, you were always so beautifully dressed." Right? So what would your inner reaction to that be? Like you've just been in, like leggings all day long, going out doing errands, things like that. My first thought would be to dismiss it off, like deny it. No, you should have seen me an hour ago, right? Like to not accept it. Oh yeah, right. Or else maybe maybe she did see me an hour ago. Maybe it is a threat. Like was she being like sarcastic? Like what? Maybe did she see me when I was out wood writing this earlier? Like so all these thoughts come up from that amount of praise, right? So maybe it's deny it could be seen as manipulating or threat. Praise can also create anxiety. You'll be second guessing it too, right? I don't think, right? Here's an example of that where you just started to learn to play tennis, and hard as you try, you still are not making any progress with your serve. Today you're playing doubles, and your first serve lands where you hope it will. Your partner says, "Wow, you have a perfect serve," right? So my interaction is like, "Oh, I'm never going to be able to do that again." Like, oh no, like that's going to create anxiety in me, right? And the pressure, and it was like, oh, I won't be able to do it again, and they're going to find out I'm a fraud, and they're going to just laugh at me, and then it's not going to become as enjoyable, right? The tennis won't be as fun because you're just worried all the time about this. So praise can create that anxiety, right, and interfere with your internal enjoyment, your enjoyment to do things just because. Yeah, beginner's luck, right? You could dismiss it. Oh, that was just beginner's luck or something like that too, right? And I find as adults we're not good at accepting compliments, right? Like a lot of people just try to to brush it off or something like that, right? And almost like you're pushing back against it, like, and so where is that coming from, right? Where is that? Because who knows, that because all the praise that we've gotten over the years is has led to that anxiety or led to that doubt or suspicion. And so sometimes we push against real genuine acknowledgement and encouragement and things too. And so how far back does it go? I don't know. That's too deep for a conversation here, but thinking about how we acknowledge children. So looking at the difference between encouragement versus praise, as opposed to acknowledgement, encouragement specific, right? So you're identifying something concrete. As you get older, Stacey, more difficult to accept the compliment. Oh wow, that's interesting. Yeah, because there's always that maybe second guessing, like you said, beginner's luck or second guessing. I see you said, yeah, interesting. Encouragement shows we appreciate the child's action, encourage repetition of desired behavior. We all want to be seen, right? All we want in life is to be seen by others. Does not imply that they need to please us. Doesn't put our values on the child. And the focus is on the effort, not the end result. And that's a key distinction. Effort versus ability, right? And that's kind of where we're going to with this. Praise is generic, non-specific, good job, right? Classic example. Focus on how you feel about the actions. Makes me happy when you sit on the carpet. Thank you. Or I like when you put the books away, ... It can be unclear and ineffective, right? Like good job. Like what does good job even mean, right? It's not giving the child information. So what is effective in terms of praising? So some suggestions, right? Praise sparingly. There's a lot of information on these slides, but and you can praise sparingly, right? We don't want to do too much, then it just becomes meaningless after a while, right? If they're overpraised, they might not push themselves to improve because I'm already good enough, right? There's motivation kind of wanes there. They kind of lose the interest that I'm good enough now. Maybe your praise is conditional. Oh, I hope my parents love me. I have to get all A's to get attention from my parents. They maybe become dependent on that evaluation and judgment of others to be validated, right? Instead of from within, and that intrinsic motivation is decreasing. Because if I'm not going to get the A's, well, why bother then, right? So, children may learn to conform instead of innovating themselves. They may become less creative, become less directive in their play, may feel more pressure. I think also that with too much praise, they may choose activities based on what they think will please others, right? And to get that praise that they come to need. So we want to be careful how much we use it. And being specific, right? So specific comments is more sincere, more meaningful, right? Again, we don't want to be praising ability, right? Perseverance, persistence, organization, courage, kindness, right? These are all attributes that we can learn, but like abilities, our intelligence and our aptitudes, like how fast we can run, those kind of things, right? Those are just abilities. And giving more useful information, right? So being sincere, right? This is where we have to remember that children are very intuitive and very perceptive, and they can tell when someone's being genuine, right? And when someone's being maybe artificial. Don't want to have too much or too little, right? Avoid false praise. We don't want to give children an inflated sense of self-esteem, right? And overpraising things. Like I used to think like like I saw people make such a big deal when a child go pee on the potty. Like, well, great, you might pee on the potty, thank you. Like that's just, that's just the natural progression. And anyway, so yeah, being sincere and praise, recognizing the process versus the person. So here's we're talking about, oh, you're so smart, right? Oh, you're so fast. Effort, strategies, time that they took to do something, right? Encouraging to take on challenge. When they experience failures, right? Then so if they've experienced, like, so say the first time they experienced failures that involve qualities that always have been praised. So say, I've started seeing this in college when I was at the college, and students who did really well in high school and then get to post-secondary and find out how difficult it is, and when they don't do well in their first paper. I've had students absolutely fall apart and come to my office and beg for a better mark, and just, like that just absolutely threw them for a loop that they couldn't recover from sometimes, actually. And so if they haven't a chance to fail, they haven't a chance to make mistakes and pick themselves up and figure out what to do with them, right? So I want them to, by giving them this, recognizing the process, you're working really hard. I can see that. You spent a long time on that, right? The effort. Look at how you figured out how to do that, and this is leading to, like, thinking about mindset that we create with ourselves and children. Avoid using as a reward, right? That decreases the intrinsic motivation. Praise makes us feel good for a moment, right? We get that little shot of dopamine and, like, ooh, right? And it feels good. And so you might want to try to seek it out more and more often and do things just so that they can get that little boost of praise. And sometimes just giving the information is more effective. This is where I was talking about avoid using the evaluation judgment statements, not like I like it when you ... Be more neutral, right? Thank you. I saw that. Thanks for putting the blocks away. Now the table is clear for lunch, right? So just acknowledge and what it means. Thanks for putting the books back on the shelf. Now we can see all the titles, right? Just neutral, what they did. And making sure the expectations are appropriate. And sometimes, like what I said, sometimes we praise too much, and we don't want them to be too low, but also too high, right? If the expectations are impossible to reach, that decreases motivation as well. So alternatives to praise, things that we could do instead, say thank you. Thanks. I saw that, right? They show that the child, so that they feel noticed, that they were seen. I appreciated them, and just like, yeah, thanks. That was great. Asking questions, right? So then maybe they can talk more about what they did. Wow, did you put all those blocks away by yourself? Oh my goodness, that's hard work, right? Or did you, wow, were you able to figure out how to get all those back in the container? Oh, that's hard to do, right? Like just things like that you can acknowledge the accomplishment, and just they were seen again, you recognize them, right? Sometimes I don't even say anything. A wink, thumbs up, high five, right? Getting the child's attention across the room, right? Sometimes that's all they need, just a smile, pat in the back, right? Acknowledgement. So an example of what this could look like, right? So a child's helped pick up the toys. Praise would be, oh, you're a good helper, as opposed to, thanks for your help. I appreciate your help. Thanks, that made my job easier. Oh, hang on, I have a sneeze coming, sorry. Excuse me. Sorry, usually I sneeze in 5, so that was only 2. Anyway, I'm sorry. Thanks for packing away so quickly. Now there's more time to go outside. Thank you. I always have a thank you. Thank you. I know you weren't ready to do that, but I appreciate you did it. Thank you. Right? Thank you. So powerful. And then after much effort, a child has built a tall tower of blocks. So you can imagine it falls over, it gets back up, falls over, it stacks it back up, right? So lots of work. Praise, oh wow, well done, that's terrific, right? Like, just, it's generic, it's not information. Wow, congratulations, wow, look at that. He did it. He looked very pleased with that. Wow, I'm impressed. Wow, you kept trying. They fell over and you kept building them up again. You figured out the bigger blocks to be at the bottom, right? So now that's why it's stunning. You figured out the blocks to be that way. You look very proud of that. So you can hear the difference in the tone there. I'm going to show you a short video. This is Carol Dweck. So Carol Dweck has spent her career looking at mindset. And so I actually have her book here. It's looking at how we can learn to fulfill our potential. So she looks at two different mindsets. One's a fixed mindset and one is a growth mindset. And talks about when we recognize attributes like intelligence, like abilities, things like that are kind of fixed, and the effect that could have on us, as opposed to acknowledging the effort. And through reading her work, a major transformation I made in my own thinking for myself, as well as for helping children, is that, I can't do it yet. The power of yet. And I encourage you to look into this, read more about this, and looking at the power of yet. Instead of just giving up, I get frustrated, I can't do it. I can't do it yet, right? So it works for myself as well too, especially because I did grow up in a household where intelligence was really measured, and I was compared to my brother a lot. Talk about judgment statements, right? Why can't you be more like your brother? Why can't you ... like your brother? And so, I think I developed quite a fixed mindset, and I shied away from doing anything that would be difficult or that I wouldn't be successful at right away. And I would tend to lean towards things that I knew that I could do. So the power of yet. And again, like I said, I encourage you just to look into that more. This is just a 5-minute video that talks about Carol Dweck's work and looks at a mindset. It talks about older school age 10-year-olds, but I think it would work for any age. So we'll just have a listen to this.
So check this out. Carol Dweck and her colleagues wanted to look into the impacts that praise had on children's development. So what they did is they took over 400 fifth grade students from all across the nation, and they did a really simple yet interesting study. Here's how it went down. They gave all the kids a really, really easy nonverbal IQ test. There were 10 questions, and at the end of the test, they praised all the children in one of two ways. The first group was praised for their intelligence. So they said, wow, great job. You must be really smart at this. Now the second group was praised for their effort. So they said, wow, great job. You must have worked really, really hard at this. Now this is a really subtle difference, but the impact it had is incredible. So after praising the kids and getting them divided up into the two groups, they gave them all an option for their next test. The first option was, hey, this next test is going to be a little bit harder, but it's going to be a great opportunity to learn and grow. Now, the second option was, this next test will be similar to the first, and you will surely do well on it. Now, the interesting thing is, out of the group that was praised for their intelligence, 67% of them chose the easier option, while 92% of the kids who were praised for their effort chose the harder test. This is unbelievable to think about, how just the subtle difference in the way that they were praised had such an impact. Carol Dweck explains why this happens.
The child or adult hears, oh, you think I'm brilliant and talented. That's why you admire me. That's why you value me. I better not do anything that will disprove this evaluation. As a result, they enter a fixed mindset, they play it safe in the future, and they limit the growth of their talents. Whereas focusing on the strategies they use, the way they're stretching themselves and taking on hard tasks, the intense practice they're doing, those are the kinds of things that say to a child or an older athlete, it's about the process of growth. As a result, they don't feel, oh, if I make a mistake, you won't think I'm talented. They think, oh, if I don't take on hard things and stick to them, I'm not going to grow.
Next, Dweck and her colleagues gave all the kids a really, really difficult test. It was one that they would surely fail, but they wanted to look at how the different kids attacked this challenge. Dweck noticed that the group that was praised for effort worked harder, longer, and actually enjoyed this test more than the group that was praised for their intelligence. This group got really frustrated with this test and had the tendency to give up early. After this artificially induced failure round, all of the kids were given a third and final test. Now, this test was the same level of difficulty as the first one, but check out the results. The group that was praised for their intelligence actually did worse on this test than the first one. Their average score actually dropped by 20%, while the group that was praised for their effort did significantly better, raising their average score by nearly 30%. This is a 50% difference in performance that was caused by a few subtle differences in the way that they were praised. This study shows how praise can either make or break a child's development. I mean, we all do it. We all want to be positive with the children we work with, so teachers, coaches, parents are always looking for ways to support their kids and tend to praise them quite a bit. So we need to look at research like this and realize, okay, praise is a good thing and there's nothing wrong with being positive, but we need to be very careful about praising someone's intelligence or abilities and focus more on the process and the effort.
I just kind of cut off there, but I think it was finished anyway. To figure out the final word, there would be effort. So thoughts. Any thoughts on that video? Eye-opening for sure. Yeah, Kristen, it really, and again, was another scholar who transformed my practice, like listening and reading the mindset book and listening to Carol Dweck. She has some TED Talks as well. You can actually listen to her in action. It really, again, like that combined with listening to the Haim Junot, I have to learn that. And Adele Faber's book, How to Talk to Kids and Listen, like that. Those are really early influential in my practice, and it continues to be as I learn and grow, trying to use the growth mindset and learning more about how we can even become better educators. So so I'll follow up with that. What I was going to do, I actually had compiled a list. I had 7 or 8 articles that I had put together, and I had intended to. First of all, I can't just share them to the chat with this program. So I had intended to. I created a OneDrive folder, and I was going to give you a link so that you can go into this folder and see these articles and use the articles for your own purposes as well. But with the government set up the Microsoft thing so that I can't share it outside the organization. So what I can do is I'll make a OneDrive folder, my personal Microsoft account, and I'll make it so it's shareable, and then you can go in and look at some of the articles, because some of them talk about the praise a little bit more and creating a soundscape in our classrooms and the words, talking more about the words that we use. So I will send that to the people who organize this Summer Learning Academy, and then they will be able to send a message to you with the link for those articles. So, I think it's a nice way to follow up on some of the conversations from today. So I'm going to leave with one last quote from Haim Junot. Yeah. So I have come to a frightening conclusion. I am the decisive element in the classroom. It is my personal approach that creates the climate. It is my daily mood that makes the weather. As a teacher, I possess tremendous power to make a child's life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or humor, hurt or heal. In all situations, it is my response to decide whether a crisis will be escalated or de-escalated and a child humanized or dehumanized. And so with that, just know that we have such an opportunity, and it's such a privilege to work with these children. And we can create just such a rich environment for them to flourish and grow. So 11:25, that worked out quite well for timing. So any last questions or thoughts, feel free to put it in the chat. I will, this slide gives you, there's the resources that I used for this. So I'm going to take a screenshot or something of it. Barbara Coloroso was also an early influence in my work as well. And she talks a lot about different things, and her philosophy, I think, really influenced my belief of making a yes environment. Carol Dweck, The Mindset, that's this book here. Alfie Kohn is The 5 Reasons to Stop Saying Good Job. That's one of the articles that I have that I can share with you. How to Talk So Kids Will Listen. Carol Gerhart Mooney, Use Your Words. She has done a lot of work with theories of childhood as well too. And then the Louise Porter article, Not in Praise of Praise. So I'll make those articles available to you. Make sure I get it to the people who can send it to you. Other than that, thank you very much for taking time out of your day, out of your summer. It's always inspiring to be with people who share the same passions and interests. And I said, I hope you feel validated for your practice, and maybe give you some tools to help you work with others around you as well. And thank you again. I think you would have my contact information, I do believe, right from the sign. I'm not sure how I'll sign up and all that work like that too, but if you need to reach out to me, you want to continue the conversation, please feel free to. Stacy, it was good to see you again. I was tickled to see your name pop up. It's been a while, but glad to see that we're still out there, right? Min, thank you. I don't know how certificates work. So that is a question. Like I said, I'm not sure who would have sent you out the notices in the first place. So that might be, I'm not the person to ask about certificates. So if you want to check back with the original person who sent you the email. Oh, Stacy, you got an email from the person who did the last workshop. Oh.
The last workshop that I took on here, like it was in July, the person who did it, I can't remember her name right now, she actually just emailed my HRCE email with her certificate.
Okay.
Yes, I think it was, Jill. You're right.
Okay, I did one before, so I didn't know anything about that part. So it was Jill Pierce.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. I'll talk to Jill. She's in the same building as me, so I'll just walk over and see Jill and see what I can do to help with certificates.
Okay.
All right. Thank you again, everyone. Have a good rest of your day and the rest of your summer. Hopefully, it hasn't been the nicest of summers, but hopefully you've been able to enjoy it. And and we'll cross paths again too, I'm sure. So thanks a lot again, and have a great day.
Thank you.